TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 1st of July. And, well, you can see that we continue the push, only to see here in post-market falling right back. Now, you still have a pretty decent range that can fall back into the previous uprise, bounce off the 50%. Caught a lot of excitement. How sustainable? This is the issue, because at the end of the day, what do you have to show for it? And this becomes the earnings question as well as the alternative. If rates aren't falling, is the market the number one place to be? But oil still rising, so inflation is not tamed in any way, shape, or form. Now, you can say that oil is stabilized, but for how long? We already know that there's going to be a massive demand on oil, even at peak productions. Everyone's still going to be either wanting to create reserves or refill the reserves they've used up. That's a long term. That's going to last to the end of the year at least, if, and that's a big if, you don't get additional conflict, because I don't think anyone believes for 1 second that things are resolved. So there's that, and that's going to continue to hang over, and that's going to cause a premium as well. Uncertainty always does. From an NQ standpoint, though, when we look at it, you've got your magenta over yellow, so that's clean. Shorts have faded off dramatically. However, when you see that orange crossing back above the green there, you've got to have a sustained move from your short-term buyers, or at least a lift of DOC red continuing to push through to stabilize things. So, yeah, create some intraday difficulties. Here's the oil situation, and you can see why we've just basically, there more ships are moving, certainly, but it's not going to change things anytime soon. There's going to have to be a report of some massive increase in supplies, and do we really see that happening? Well, and that's what the oil markets are going to be watching for. And that would be relative to demand. So, if the U.S. is cooling economically or something, then you might see it. That's not something that we have, noticed at this particular stage. We are in a overall short configuration within it, but you still have magenta over yellow. So, yes, it's a weak buy configuration, but still within that, you still don't have orange dipping below green from a DOC standpoint, though you've dipped below the 7.5 and actually even below 13.5 with the orange. So that definitely should be a base turnaround area for oil. Hasn't happened yet. It's possible that we get the pivot back up, and that would continue the downside of it, but nothing too helpful there. The euro, still super excited for everyone in the euro. They just love the euro to death here. Way overvalued for what they're producing, but hey, you have to factor in the anti-Trump trade. It's built into things. It's the same thing that you're seeing with the oil situation. On gold, continuing to suffer on that, because they think that somehow inflation is going to be tamed on this. I think when the numbers start coming through, and then we start seeing the transition into food inflation later on, that's going to shift. And the rate of change is really what we're going to be looking at from an inflationary standpoint when it comes to those details. Zoomed into the Bitcoin one here, you can still see unable to capture anything. NBI White still leading on that. Magenta just popping up. You're still below 10. You're going to get that thing spiking. You can see there's your problem right here. Even though you get the turnaround of DOC red and even green still underneath, and you're not going to get the dip of orange in this particular case just yet, below red or green. So you lack any impetus move at all, like none. And here it is for the 50K. So you can see this whole buildup, and pretty much they refilled everything that took place. And that was just a couple of positive extremes there, but they filled those back in. In the pre-market situations, this is from the Asian, and the start here of the European session just began, and there's still more room for it to go. And you can see that's a clean short signal from both DOC as well as NBI readings. So there's no question about that. The advantage you get, though, is you get the steel reset all the way down here. Once it pops back above the 13.5, you'll get a little bit of support from that. At this particular stage, right at that 76%, so this is still rather healthy, and you have to go all the way back to 74.80, which is even above the 50% continued weakness to even fill back towards just the other day, 2 days ago. So, yeah, not a big factor there. Intraday, again, still think these moves are fairly decent and they're nice trend run moves, both to the downside as well as even to the upside moves on them. It's pretty clean. We've got the later day sell signal, had a brief pop, got up to the 50%, but then it was a sell signal from there with the weight spike coming through, and it's pretty much stayed that way all the way until, well, we had a brief moment where we thought we might get some activity. But once you move with the red and the magenta spike over a weight at the 25 level, that's pretty much saying that, yeah, it's an exhaustion sort of like buy push. Uh, not usually sustainable, and that's why it pivoted immediately. And once it did, that was the new short setup, and then just blew through the lows and cleared it out. And right now, that breakthrough to the new low getting filled back into the previous area, so which corresponds right to that middle range back here earlier in the intraday activity. So I think the algos are all behaving quite nicely. Uh, no real shocks from that standpoint. It's all going to be news related, and the Supreme Court decisions that came through had really nothing to do with economics, so they really didn't have much of an impact anyway. So that didn't really do anything. Uh, and then those are all separate issues. We got the fourth coming up, so everyone's going to be in kind of a happier mood. I think after the fourth, we'll get a better idea of how Trump wants to deal with Iran and whether that's going to become more hardline as they realize that they've pretty much been played in the negotiations. But then again, they could just turn a blind eye and understand that there's nothing they can do about it, that they messed up with the whole situation, and basically let the Iranians have their PR win or whatever, or just claim that they're making nonsense, which there's something to be said for basically ignoring the reality and basically say, yeah, we won, and realize that no, we didn't get anything out of it except for higher prices for everybody. Anyway, that's a whole separate story. All we got to do is follow the numbers and see where we're at with that. And I think that unfortunately we're looking all the way to fall before anything dynamically breaks, unless there's some kind of meltdown in AI or something like that. Of course, there's the conspiracy theory of the August 12th losing gravity. So that would be a major economic event if that happened. There's all sorts of wild things. It's always amazing, throughout your entire life, you're always going to get these gloom and doom stories where the earth is ending, blah, 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 and it never stops. So, and yet we're always still here. But of course, a world-ending event is always a buy opportunity, because if the market sells off, there's no reason not to buy, because if you're all going to die anyway, then doesn't really make any difference. You're not going to lose anything. But if they're wrong, which they almost always are, well, they always have been to this point, then it's a huge win. So keep that one in mind. Anyway, have a good one. Trade well. Anything relevant, I will put out on our team chat. Have a good one.